Welcome back to the coffee show, everyone. Awesome episode today. Just over a week and a half ago, the Victorian, so where we are in Australia, so the Victorian regional barista competitions were held, where one of today's guests was the winner of the Brewers Cup category. That is Davy Jones Flood, just over here. So welcome to the coffee show. And we've got none other than Sam Keck from Commonfolk Coffee as well. So thank you both for coming on the program. But why I wanted to bring you guys on here is because I'm getting big into this thing of storytelling with baristas and coffee culture and competitions as well, because I feel like it's just kind of something we do on occasion where we have it in the back shed in, the middle of whoop whoop, and, that's it. We get a winner. Thanks. Send someone to the World Barista Competition, World Brewers Cup, whatever. But I think to grow there's actually a high level of interest, but not many people telling the story. And this is one of the epic stories that you will ever hear in coffee. and I'll paint a picture like this. So, David, when I first saw you and I saw you on stage, I thought to myself, the guy's from North Queensland and he looks like he rescues injured wildlife for a living. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Yeah. So I'm expecting this, thick Australian accent when you start your routine, but it's this beautiful, delicate Irish accent. And then you delivered what was one of the most outstanding routines in a Brewers Cup that I've ever seen. And you had people in the crowd in tears. Like there was, a couple. And I think the most fascinating part of it all, when we sit back here now and you're the winner, is that you used a coffee from Uganda from the Zukukubora project. Is that how we call it? The Zukukubora project?
Works for me.
And, I put it like this I've summarized it like this. It's like taking a knife to a gunfight and winning. And you did it. And it's like, I've been so excited for this podcast, but, firstly, congratulations, but also, how do you kind of feel hearing me say that about Zukukubora coffee?
Oh, well, it's unbelievable about the coffee. I mean, I'd only ever wanted to enter a competition when there was something I believed in. And yeah, just as soon as I tasted this coffee, I was like, this coffee matters. And then I heard the story about it. So we just rolled with it. And to be able to get given a platform to showcase this coffee, to highlight 12 years of work and bring it to regionals and then to win regionals with it. It was unbelievable. And to get to work with the whole Commonfolk team, to get to call the guys in Zukukubora, it was such a huge team effort. So, I was delighted to uphold my end of the bargain.
What was that like, calling the Zukukubora people and letting them know that they won?
Oh, no, I didn't get to call them. But
what was it like when you did?
Yeah, so we've got a group, actually, and I'll add you to it. I didn't want to do it until because I haven't seen David since he won. I sent him a message, but it's like, a lot of hugs and congratulations.
You live a distance away, so
there's a little bit of distance there. But we've got a group called the Coffee Connectors. It's a WhatsApp group. It is basically like anyone who is interested in us connecting them with our partners who have like WhatsApp, which most coffee farmers do. And so I actually messaged on there because I'm like, we've got to tell everybody at once. And so they were just, I think too, there's an element, they're not like, they always have said they want to win competitions. I think this just came a bit quicker than we had envisaged. And I was just blown away. I think to quote Ivan, who's one of the managers, it was like, it makes it feel like it's all worthwhile. And he's like, but actually now I'm more motivated to work even harder to make the coffee even better this year. And they always look at they're just too bloody nice. Like they're like, rather than going, our coffee's great, they're like, this is very encouraging. Let's make it even better. I'm like,
yeah, well, I mean,
relish it, but it's just unbelievable. I mean, I think I was almost more shocked because I got a phone call from Ian, who, one of our partnerships managers who'd been working with Dave, and had been there the entire time. At would have been about 7 p.m. or something on a Sunday, or I don't know.
Yeah, I would have told him a bit later. Yeah.
And I'm getting a phone call. And I'm thinking, oh no, something bad's happened. Like, he's crashed a car. It's a bit of an in-joke, anyone understand? But he's like, David won. And I was like, sorry, what do you mean? And he's like, he won Brewers Cup, he won the whole thing. And I just almost fell off my chair because again, like I think we knew that, David was an incredible orator, and I thought that he was going to be able to tell the story really well. And the coffee is delicious, but I knew it was going to be up against very, very expensive, geishas from Panama or Costa Rica or Colombia, and to then for it to dawn on us that like no, Zukukubora has just out competed all of them in the cup as well as through the story. Like I think it hasn't really still sunk in until we start having this chat today.
Yeah,
like, this is what we hoped for Zukuka. This was, I think I said it last time I chatted to you, was that like one day how good would it be if like Zukuka was so in demand and was such a high quality coffee that we couldn't even think to try and claim all of it for ourselves, and it was just other people desperately wanted it.
To paint a picture for those watching or listening at home, it's like, so not only did you win the competition, but the competition itself, the standard is the strongest I've ever seen in a regional competition ever. Like there was 5 or 6 world-class, like people that could compete. I've just been to the World Brewers Cup in Jakarta a few months ago. There was 5 or 6 people there that day that could have done really well at the world competition. And you came in and just wiped the floor with everyone, really, because I was the MC on the day. So I literally was on stage watching everyone. I got to see the technical aspects, I got to see the brewing, and I got to hear firsthand the speech. So, right out of the gate, there was this other kid called Marcus Tang who I thought did really well.
Yeah, he was incredible.
But he was, again, a great orator. I think, I haven't seen his score sheets, but maybe his coffee let him down. But then you just came in and, again, I didn't get to taste the coffee, although I'd sure like to. I was quite stunned, to be honest. And both literally and figuratively, it was like a bit of a David versus Goliath battle where, there's people like, and sorry to localize this for those listening abroad, but, people like Devon Long, who's represented Australia at the Worlds before, people like Julian Markovic, who's very much at that level, Fran Lee, if there's anyone else I'm forgetting, like there's really, really strong competition. Yeah. And I think that's what makes this all so much more special. One, for your personal self, but the impact this could have on people at Zukukubora, because those people are using these Panama geishas, the knife in a gunfight. They're using the Panama geisha, the best of the best coffee globally, coffees that people pay thousands of dollars a kilo for now. And here you are using Zukukubora, which is, it's just not recognized as that at the moment, but it's obviously clearly every bit as good and as capable of being up there in the future. Like you doing what you've done, making that choice and delivering like you did, I think this is just incredible. And, everyone who's like in the aftermath of the competition, like that's been the reaction.
Cool. Great.
Made a very few worlds. Yeah. So what was your instant emotion like when you first won, when we were announced the winner? Because like, did you hear second or did you hear third and second? And was there a part of you that's like, oh, it's disappointing knowing some of the other people that were there? Or
yeah, I mean, like I didn't get a chance to see Alex's routine. I had seen Louis' routine, and he blew me away. And he kind of like that sowed a few seeds of doubt in me because he was so precise, so clinical, like incredible presentation, attention to detail, customer service. His coffee sounded out of this world. Lost Origin, geisha blended with a washed geisha. So when I heard him called out second, I was like, wow, like he's second. So then
Jeez, whoever won must be bloody brilliant.
Well, yeah, I started looking around to see who was it that, and then they called my name, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, it felt very nice, but I was very shocked, because just like first time competing, as you said, seeing some of those names up there, that's a lot of what motivated me, knowing that I was going up against people like that, and how prepared I'd have to be, and everything was brand new, and having to learn a number of new skill sets from scratch, and then to bring them up to the highest standard possible, and then to bring them all together. That's a new skill in itself. It was bedlam. So I just, very simply, I just knew that if this was my first time I wanted to give it everything to see what that felt like and to see what that would result in. So, I mean, it's quite reassuring to see what it does result in.
What's everything? Like what?
We had 6 weeks from when we got the coffee. So 6 weeks of daily training, finished.
But what is training like? I'm not like, what's everything? Like what does that look like?
Well, I mean, I'd be in work from 7 till 6, and then I'd train from 7 till 9:30, and then, you know, go to bed and make dinner, and that's it. Training all day on my days off. That could be like 8-9 hours.
So you really put in that much?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the results show, but like,
Yeah, I love coffee. And I'm really driven by passion, and this was just what I was locked into. And like, it was the most fulfilling 6 weeks of my professional career, without a doubt. Or at least like on par. It was just the best. Every moment was fun. It left me rejuvenated. It left me so inspired, and, you know, like, just being able to improve and to get these skills and to get that coffee closer and closer after every practice. Yeah, it's just the best. It's the dream.
And so where did using Zukukubora come into all of this? Because I do recall you explaining in your routine, but just explain for the listeners.
Yeah. There was a cupping in Core Coffee in North Fitzroy, for anyone who doesn't know about them. They're probably one of my favorite roasters,
Awesome
because
roasters.
they're so socially conscious and dedicated to serving incredibly delicious coffee. Michael and his partner do an incredible, Danny, thank you. They kill it. So when I saw they were putting on a cupping, I was like, yep, I'll go there. So I was on the 17th of April. I went there with a guy I work with, and yeah, just started tasting the coffees, and they're all like really nice. Hadn't really had Ugandan coffees before. And then we got to the naturals, and then that was like level up in like intensity. People were talking about CP Falls. I'd never heard of it, but it was delicious. And then we got to the reserve section, anaerobic washed, natural, you know, and started tasting those. And you know, when a coffee's so good that you have to like look at the coffee as if there's going to be like a jasmine flower floating in it or something. It was kind of like one of those moments. It really reminded me of so many of the qualities of like a really high quality pink bourbon, just like that silky mouthfeel, that really beautiful sweetness and acidity. It was just fantastic. And like I bought my ticket for Brewers Cup, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to get. And I was like, oh, this is great. You know, easy to choose the reserve coffee on a cupping table, but it was great. And then Robbie from Jenga started telling us the story about how Zukukubora came to be. And like, I place social value in coffee so high. That's, you know, yeah, that's in my eyes, that's the purpose of coffee, is to empower people's lives. So when he said how that coffee came to be, I was like, easy, this is it. Like, that's what resonates with me. That's what I want to share. And the coffee's good. So yeah, it was a no-brainer.
Sam, I might get you to jump in here and just I just realized we haven't actually explained what Zukukubora is. So let's enlighten the listener. And I'll pretext this by saying that I've interviewed you about this before, and there's a documentary that people can go and watch called Every Cup Counts.
Yep.
But yeah, take the floor. Tell us.
Sure thing. So I think I'll give you the elevator pitch, but definitely encourage anyone who is curious about what David's done and Zukukubora to watch the documentary, because it's just going to do it a lot more justice than I will in the next minute or so. But essentially, Zukukubora is a coffee company that's set up as a social enterprise in Uganda by, I guess, people who were in and around these community spaces doing a lot of work through Jenga, which is like a bit of a separate community development organization that does, you know, more that traditional style development. So like women's savings groups, you know, water programs, schools programs. They got a program in jails, and, you know, they do a lot of that more traditional social work that you would expect a charity in Africa to do. And they identified early on that like that work can be impactful, but like what really matters is vocation and people getting paid and having work and a job. And the big employer, at least in Mbale, which is in the far sort of east of Uganda on the border with Kenya on the slopes of Mount Elgon, used to be coffee. And there was still coffee being grown everywhere. It's just that it had become not necessarily like a particularly lucrative industry, especially for the poorest people, the people living rurally up on the mountain who were producing the coffee. It was just another thing that could get them a little bit of cash every now and then. It wasn't taken seriously. And so this project was identified. At this stage, Commonfolk had been putting aside 20 cents from every cup of coffee we brew and every kilo we roast into like this little kitty, which was quite a modest kitty when we started because it was just a small little cafe in a shed in Mornington that roasted coffee. But we pulled up a little bit and made an initial donation of about $12,000, and it bought a demonstration plot of land. The idea would be that the farmers could come along and see how specialty coffee would be produced, and then maybe consider doing that for themselves to fetch a higher price. And very quickly it became evident that they could do that, and the knowledge hadn't disappeared, but instead they really needed a market to then sell that. And it was like, they were going to produce this really great coffee and they'd just be selling it back to the people who, were previously buying it for poor prices. Anyway, fast forward, the next harvest, and, they produced a commercial lot of coffee with Zukukubora paying, being the producer and paying farmers cash on delivery of their cherry, which is unheard of. And it was okay coffee. I was slightly unimpressed. But there was an acknowledgement that's like, oh, we can do something with this. And so we kept, making kind of like donations towards trying to expand that through the charity. And we also then committed from a commercial perspective to be their first customer. So we bought 4 ton, I think was their first official commercial harvest. We bought all of it and it was pretty good. Like we're talking sort of mid to low 80s. And I was like, okay, there's something in this. And then year after year after year, they continued to improve their coffee and expand their footprint into other communities along the mountain.
How much coffee do they produce year out now?
So this year they're aiming to do 5 containers. That's about 100 tons of coffee, which is like, if you think about that compared to, I mean, even before we did the 4 ton, it was like 200 kilos they managed to kind of put together. Is crazy. But the best part about it is that the price that the farmers have been receiving, even with obviously the record prices in coffee, the last sort of, 6 to 12 months has been, double what they were getting way back in, kind of 2015 when it all kicked off. But the quality of the coffee is truly exceptional. And we're starting to see, coffees that are competition worthy, but also competition winning worthy be produced. And that's where we find ourselves. Like, I think we're at the precipice of, like a new dawn in Ugandan coffee. In a lot of ways it's on the back of, the hard work and the capacity of these producers like Zukukubora. But then also I think the next part of it is, people like David who are, kind of come along and tell the story, but then also show that the coffee's, it's a gunfight killer. It's this big ass machete. Cut the barrels of all those shotguns.
Just had that need for speed. Well, I was reading an article this morning, sort of researching a little bit before this, and it's written in Coffee Intelligence by Sarah Charles. So credit to her. Uganda is betting on coffee and is now Africa's top coffee exporter. So they've overtaken Ethiopia as the number one.
You'd be like the 10th person who sent that to me this week.
But it's
good.
It's incredible, and I think there's one other example of someone doing excellent quality coffee out of Uganda, and that's I think it's the Mzungu project by Gardeli Coffee Roasters,
and that's in Sippy,
So like it's good to see that there's more, and obviously I think it's one thing to use it in like a milk coffee, but to use it in a brewer's, like it's just it's just the highest way to appreciate that coffee if you ask the typical specialty coffee drinker, right?
Yep.
So yeah, very incredible. Did you have anyone urge you not to use it? Like, was anyone like, oh, this is a bad idea?
Yeah, to be honest, no. I mean, the whole time it was just my coach, Emmeline, when I was going over to taste it, was just having a clear idea of it doesn't matter if you like it or if it's nice. Is it a competition coffee? Will it is it well balanced? Will it score well across these 6 areas? In my opinion, it was. So I went with the one that I thought was most appropriate, and it was very appropriate. Yeah.
There's one kind of there's a precedent for barista competition, I guess, in what you're doing. And that's there's a lady called Jay Jennings who is, she came second in the Australian Barista Championship using Rwandan coffee.
Cool.
and like beat out some big names as well, and very narrowly missed out. And I think I recall her saying that she had a lot of people saying, look, just use like a Colombian coffee or a Panamanian coffee and you'll win. Like your chances are very high. And she just refused. And, obviously it got a very good result, but she could have gone to the world. A lot of people say, oh, maybe you could have gone to the world. I think I tried one of her coffees. It was absolutely outstanding. But I came into where you're working, St. David, the other day and had a chat, and you've made it pretty clear that you intend to use the same coffee for nationals, yeah?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Success shouldn't change your principles or integrity. So same coffee, same message. And I'm so excited at the prospect of, bringing Zukukubora to nationals and seeing what we can do now that everything's opened up.
So in your routine, you say coffee is an effective and delicious tool for social innovation. So what is social innovation and why do you promote it?
Yeah. This only came to me maybe like 2 weeks before the competition, that a lot of what I was promoting and valuing was the social impact of this coffee. And unfortunately, I think that the industry, and then I guess I just reckon the judges would reflect the industry, is that technical innovation is what's valued. You know, your Mosto ferments, whatever water you're using, waved technology, like all this cool stuff and like cool machines that are like shiny and lovely. But, I valued the social impact of it. So I couldn't just let the judges come to that decision on their own. I had to explicitly tell them that this coffee is innovative through its social impact. So that's how I came to that. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
Oh, no, I think you answered it. Answered it all, but
yeah. Oh, because it's a effective tool for it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, coffee is a colonial industry that's rooted in slavery and exploitation. That's how the industry is founded, and that legacy is everywhere to be seen in the industry. Where the consuming countries are, where the producing countries are, where the money is, where the power is. And, we, in the consuming countries, we have, we have a choice to acknowledge this. We have a choice to decide where our money goes, who we buy coffee from. And, if we choose the right places, like Zukukubora, then that's helping not like a family who own a farm, but an entire community. And after harvest, when everyone goes up and sells their beans and gets cash in hand that day, it's not like they just walk home. There's like a whole market that's set up along the road with all these vendors, people selling stuff, and people are buying things straight away. And that's the impact of this coffee. And like that makes me so excited. So that's the power of this coffee. That's what I want to promote. And if you're just, for me, it doesn't resonate with me if I was just to use a really high quality coffee that's tried and tested, that is arguably the most beautiful coffee you've had. But like, what's the point? What's the substance in it? Has that coffee done anything? And if it hasn't, I think we have to do better.
I feel like that's going to make me cry. You're going to make me.
I'm actually teary. I don't think you can tell right on the camera.
You might make me cry on this podcast. Like I'm like a cold, dark soul, but if you make me cry, I'll like give you something. But like, what you just said then about, coffee being a colonial industry, it's like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because we have the privilege of getting to drink coffee. And this is why like people not paying enough in Australia pisses me off, because drinking coffee is not a human right. It's a privilege. We are at the very fortunate side of the coffee supply chain where we just get to play with our good machines and we get to drink it. Like we went to Indonesia a few months ago, and, just climbing up the hill, it's hard. Getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, picking the cherries, sometimes they're doing it in the rain. And they carry a sack back down a mountain to get it back, and they get paid a fraction of what we do here. And so what you just said is probably the most impactful thing in the 6 years of podcasting I've done that's ever been said on a podcast that I've done. So, you're an impressive guy, David. But I want to put this out to the table, and, feel free to, I think probably all be in agreement, but feel free to debate. I think the times of the age of cheap coffee is coming to an end. And I feel like it'll be such a good outcome for people when we don't really have to this. What you said before about building up that community, getting paid on the day and not giving you coffee on tick essentially, and it's developmental to those communities. And when we don't have to debate amongst ourselves, sell it to customers here in Western countries that, to pay a fair price, the demand for coffee is becoming so great across the world that, they're not just going to sell it cheap to us because we want it cheap. They'll go sell it to a better buyer because the buyer's there. The demand's growing for coffee. And, I kind of hope that I've seen the commodity price kind of dip a little bit. So it's back below $3 US per pound now. I kind of want it to stay high. What's your thoughts, Sam?
Literally chatting about this with, some other people who are, bring in a lot of green coffee, today and over the last few weeks. And I think there's a bunch of people in the industry who've been like, oh, great. Oh, price of coffee's dropping again. Great. Back to normal. And it's a bit of a shame. I think that I can understand why roasters or importers or cafes or anyone who's involved, would feel good about coffee maybe being a bit cheaper again for, the next little while. And I even empathize with it because, it's a really siloed industry. I think a lot of times the little sections, each step of the value chain has done a really good job of insulating what it actually does from the next step, maybe, protectionist to, justify what they're charging for it or just to, for whatever reason. Also partly because it's very complicated. We're dealing with, international trade, even specialty coffee still operates in and around the commodity space simply because it's the same product. It's just how you're selling it. And so, a lot of people have had their backs against the wall, whether it's roasters, cafe owners, importers, over the last little while because, aside from coffee going up in price, cost of living has been really high. There's been a lot of pressures in these Western countries on what people can use their disposable income on if they have any. And everyone's feeling the pinch. And, generally if you feel the pinch, you try and kick the can down the road to the next person. And eventually that gets back to the coffee producer, the farmer in Uganda. And, history has said that they end up, getting the least. And again, that's what we're trying to change. Whereas now coffee is quite expensive, or at least, maybe it's getting close to what it should be. And I think that the concern I have is that people view all coffee as being the same. And I've often told people that not all coffee is created equal. And what I mean by that is, if you've got a large estate in Brazil that, can use mechanical harvesting and automation and, and economies of scale, it may be reasonable. And again, I'm not a producer, so, I'm not going to throw out a dollar figure, but to produce a coffee that's actually quite economical and that you can sell for not much and do well, and everyone does well. But the reality is in Uganda, in Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, any East African country for sure, that's not the case. All of it is produced by hand. The simple, climate that it exists within means that it can't be produced effectively at scale. But so it has to be more expensive. And so if, and again, your bigger countries like your Brazils and in India and Vietnam and those countries that often can produce at scale larger coffees, they benefit from a high price of coffee, and you might be like, unjustly too, because they can produce it so cheaply. They're just making heaps of money. But if that's what it takes to keep the price high for the people who need it to be high, it's probably a good thing. But yeah, I just don't think the industry wasn't ready for what happened this year, Keck. I think that there are a lot of people who, a lot of roasters who who didn't buy the coffee they needed to, or who very quickly dropped their producing partnerships like a hot sack of shit and went to whatever the next cheapest coffee was that they could get, because their business model was basically buy the cheapest coffee you can possibly get.
And this is why I really applaud, roasters like Commonfolk, Seven Seeds do it, Proud Mary and Market Lane. When you see a roaster year after year buying the same coffee and having that relationship, I feel like, I say this on the podcast a lot, seeing things or hearing things and understanding them are two different things. Because, we hear the word relationship, but you don't question it beyond that. But, having, you look at this project 12 years from now and it gets to the point now where you just got this kind of breakthrough moment where it's used in a competition, and, the hope that has, maybe this podcast goes out to people and people Google Zukukubora and they want it in a country where they are, they want to buy it, that's a win. And I just think that relationship word in coffee, sometimes we need to not only hear it, but attempt to understand it. And that continuous buying is such a good thing. So if you see that a coffee roaster doing it, green flag. But I want to go back to what you were sort of alluding to with highlighting the different situations with growers in like Brazil or countries like Uganda or Bolivia. Like I went to Bolivia in 2018, and like the journey to the farm like almost had me in tears because, the lack of infrastructure that these people have. So it's not only do they do that arduous work of picking it, but then they process it. And we just released a video about this. They've got to hand sort for hours the mucilage once it's been pulped. I'm like, do you have a machine for this? And they're like, no, it costs $50,000. We can't buy that. And it's like, and then they've got to transport it on a truck that, isn't the best, on roads that are like, you couldn't drive on here in Australia. It's just like the lack of like the challenges they have to go through, and like, and then to hear someone complain about paying, $6.50 for a coffee on the other hand, it's like, shut up. One day, if you don't, like, it's like, okay, well, they'll just sell the coffee to someone else. I feel like we're not too far away from getting to that.
No, and I think I said it, like I always say this, I feel like it's just the gospel that I preach from, but it's like, we'll still get coffee in Australia. It'll just be mass produced, not specialty, fairly vanilla, bog standard average tasting coffee. And all of the really good coffees that, Melbourne has almost staked its reputation on, they'll be being sold to other people in other countries, in other coffee markets that appreciate coffee as an exceptional product that, that takes years of dedication, skill, blood, sweat and tears literally to produce at that level. And that would be such a shame. Like, can you imagine if we couldn't be having this conversation because, the only coffee that David could have chosen was, like, I don't know, like a regional Brazilian, like pulp natural, which, and again, there's nothing wrong with those coffees, but like, that might be the only coffees we're buying in Australia if, this is what we insist upon as a market. The
another line from your routine, David, this is the true essence of specialty coffee. It's about people, community, and bonding over a special cup of coffee. And I think you actually got the judges to look at each other and then look at the crowd and all that sort of stuff. And really, I'll let you explain why you thought that was an essential part of what you were delivering.
Yeah. Again, that kind of came later in it all. Initially, it was about coffee's ability to create, empower and celebrate community. But back when it came up to the social innovation, that's when I introduced those three key things, because at its heart, specialty coffee is about people. Again, like just what you guys are talking about, coffee is about people. So when people are celebrating low prices, they're celebrating the most vulnerable people in the supply chain getting paid less. What are you doing? Unfortunately, coffee is such a socially sensitive industry, but it's just treated as a cold business by so many people in it who leverage their sales and marketing off of the stories and the faces of the people who are most vulnerable while they're paying them less. So to me, coffee is about people. It's about trying to raise, like everyone up. So coffee community and bonding over a special cup of coffee, I guess that's the journey of what specialty coffee is, because it's the communities across continents. That's a 12-year-long relationship between Commonfolk, Zukukubora, and the community in Mount Elgon. Community is what allowed me to engage with Core Coffee when they collaborated with Commonfolk. Communities what allowed me to create or to present, a winning routine with my friends, with people who weren't even yet friends. That's why it was so beautiful, getting to know so many people in the industry and getting to share that. And that's all done at the end product of bonding over coffee. So I guess that's the journey that it goes along.
What were you doing before you were a barista?
I was a mechanical engineer, and
right.
I hated it.
Okay. What kind of things did you work on as a mechanical engineer?
Oh, in fairness, like I was a design technician designing the Intel site in Leixlip in Ireland.
What's that?
It's just a town in Laois in Ireland. I think it's in Laois. But yeah, I studied mechanical engineering for 4 years, finished up during COVID, which meant I just kind of got a job in a firm, and, they paid me like 30,000 euro a year, worked 9 hours a day, just in front of like 2 huge screens, doing terrible stuff. So then within 5 months, I promised myself I'd leave. So within 5 months, I applied for the local cafe, because coffee had been my passion for the last 7 years previous. And within a year, I was working for a roasters, getting paid more with health insurance and working less than, a company that turns over 200 million euro a year. So
seems like a pretty clear equation to me. And I often have people come to our shop and I think one thing we get right as a shop is like having a good vibe. Everyone welcomes you when you come in, treats you like they're your friend, sort of thing, and with dignity, and the impact is like we get people that are accountants, people that work for the government in public service, and they're just like they always say like, I would trade jobs with you in an instant, but they're just like the barista profession is not paid like some of those roles are in Australia. But I do kind of feel like the day will come where like a professional barista has so much more value. Like if you're serving me your coffee, speaking the way that you do, you need to be paid like significant if you want to be working on a bar, and you should be working on a bar. Like,
Well, sorry, to be honest though, like I think it is a really valued job, just not maybe monetarily, but the social value out of this job is the most valuable thing I've had in years. Like I've hundreds of people come into the cafe, know all of them by name. Some of them have invited me to family dinners in the hotel around the corner on really tough days when I was like literally sitting outside the cafe with my head in my hands after hours because I was so stressed. Penny walks over to me, picks me up, gives me a hug and a little pep talk for half an hour to see like what's going on. And that's what I love. It's like so many of the issues around people not having enough money to spend, people getting pinched in all these areas. I think it all comes back to community. It's this globalization of the world. It's the detachment from each other, from being able to create these meaningful social connections. And having a community is the base of all of this. So any barista who works in any customer-facing cafe, like they're arguably like richer than everyone else who comes in the door.
I reckon you will make me cry by the end of the podcast. I'm like, Jesus, are you sure you weren't a poet? Like, I'm looking into his eyes. He's talking. You make it like, I don't mean to trivialize anything what you just said, but like, goddamn, you're probably going to maybe cry before the end of this. But you're right. And I put this. I kind of don't like the direction society's going, where people are kind of locked in their own little isolation zones, I guess. I dropped my girlfriend yesterday to go do some placement at the dental hospital in Shepparton. So my girlfriend studies dentistry, and they go do placement in these rural communities. And so I drove her to Shepparton, and there's like I think 13 people living in the house. Not one of them was out in the living room. They're all home. They're all just in their beds, the bedrooms. It's like man, like I'm just not like that at all personally. I'd be out in the living room playing Mario Kart or doing something else. And then you put it from like work from home, which, you know, I get it. Like if, you know, I wouldn't want to be like you described it before with your job. Like I wouldn't want to be in that situation, but like the things that we risk by, you know, so many people, like most of society has its value metrics in financials, right? But everything you're saying, you're flipping on its head in one podcast, like, you know, the social value of things. And, you know, what do we risk if we don't have these third places that we go? Like, I just think it'd be such a shame. And, you know, obviously we would lose such a asset ourselves, but, you know, potentially leave other people stranded at the other end of the supply chain.
Yeah, I reckon that's the countercultural space that maybe, you know, like coffee needs to and can hold, you know, for us in our society. It's like, you know, it used to be going to the pub, like I'm sure, like in Australia, the pastime was like you finish work, knock off, go to the pub and, you know, be with your community. I think now more than ever, it's probably moving more to the cafe and hopefully to the cafes that prioritize people first. Like, you know, yours is amazing. I think Commonfolk was literally the name. It was about the everyday person. And it just happened to be coffee was the common denominator. That was the way to get people in the door. But the reality is, and we all know this, that in the end, it's about the people. And you know, again, just the justification then to, you know, to choose a coffee like Zukukubora is because it's got to be about all the people. And then, you know, I feel like these conversations often come across as being either so lofty and, you know, unobtainable that like we kind of get a bit depressed because like, it's not really ever going to be like that. Or alternatively, they're a distraction from what a lot of people who probably listen to this podcast want to know, which is like, but did the coffee taste good? And like, I think, you know, my emphasis is like, yeah, it does both those things. It has social good and you know, it uses social innovation, but part of that innovation is on the back of really good coffee produced by passionate people every step of the equation. And because they're all getting what they need to get from it, it actually ends up making a better product that everyone can then bond over again.
I saw something that a producer named Diego Bermudez posted on his Instagram the other day. So he owns a farm called Finca El Paraíso. So it's got a really big reputation in the coffee industry. And he was saying things like he had delivered coffee to certain roasters who still haven't paid him like 2 or 3 years later. Like he might not ever get money for that. And it just, I wouldn't be able to live with myself doing that. Like I don't know how other people do. Like, you know, the system should work off paying people, and you know, and like it's already like a difficult enough proposition for a lot of coffee producers rather, because they have to effectively, you know, ship you the coffee and not get paid for it. You know, can you imagine getting one paycheck for the entire year? Like most people in the Western world couldn't do that. They couldn't function like that. It'd all be gone in like a month or two. And that's kind of what we impose on other people. So it's just kind of bizarre, really.
Yeah, it actually, like, I've been reflecting on this a lot because one of the things we try to do with Commonfolk, with our green partners, is pay to their terms as best we possibly can. It was really, really challenging because, like, we're a small business still. Like, we're not a huge roaster. And, like, all it takes is one, you know, like a blip or one cascading sort of, like, non-payment to us or whatever that means that, like, we can't pay in advance or, you know, like, so we're happy to sign up to like contracts and everything, but like the pressure that's on the back of an industry not set up to try and do what we kind of aspire to do makes it so bloody hard. But all the way down to like a cafe owner, like imagine though, and we've had this discussion because we'd love to roll out a way for our cafe partners to, you know, sort of like do their bit to support a fairer industry. And like, I'd sort of be like, well, you can't need to pay for your coffee when it needs to be paid for, which is actually probably 6 to 12 months before you'll ever see it. But I also, like, I say it tongue in cheek because the reality is there's no way a cafe owner could do that.
Oh, no.
Like you know, they'd be lucky to make, you know, like 5% profit
Yeah.
now. So it's a real challenge. And I think that on the media loves, you know, like a fairly simple, clickbait narrative, for whatever it is. But our industry is so complex, and even literally just hospitality, parking the coffee thing there, the general public's understanding of the costs of running it is very limited. And in a way, why should they know in more detail? Like, it's not their business. But it is a bit of a shame when, I sort of, see comments in the bottom of like a bloody News Limited article where people are like, every cafe owner I know is driving around in a new car every year. And I'm like, really?
Show me them.
I know a lot of cafe owners, and I don't know any of them have a new car.
Yeah, no, it's
and I know a lot of baristas, but I don't know many of them who have a car at all. So
yeah, well, it kind of has to work eventually for everyone to feel like they're winning. It has to work on both ends, right?
Yeah.
Like in Australia, I think people, in maybe some other Western countries too, like there's just kind of tough economic circumstances right now. It's probably like one of the biggest issues we have as an industry on this side. And it's like, people can't afford to go out as much and drink as much. And that's why coffee shops are kind of hurting here. Social media, I've got a question for both of you. Did you think that cafe culture was better before like the TikTok era? Because I was thinking about this the other day. I see so many people out there giving ratings for things. They'll go somewhere and they give it like a 5 or an 8.4 or something like that. And it's just like, oh man, what qualifies you to say that? Like you're just some random on TikTok, and it's like not like all these people are chefs and stuff, but like it makes me think, like, was the cafe culture better before this era?
I'd say it was a simpler time.
Those were the days.
Yeah, because you get a recommendation and you wouldn't be sure if it was the place, and then you'd pop in, and then from the moment you set foot inside that place, that's all of your experience. And I thought that was really nice, and then you get to know them. But now it's a bit more loaded. You'll probably know the 2 or 3 signature drinks they do. You probably recognize the layout of the cafe. You're disappointed because that bun that they have in their Instagram isn't on. So you've walked in and now you're already let down instead of just in awe of everything. But I don't know. I mean, it's just different, and that's it. The world's always changing. You get with it or get left behind. So, yeah.
I think the bar's higher in terms of like barrier of entry. If you don't look or give off a certain vibe, I mean, I think back to Commonfolk when we opened in 2013, like it was a big shed, and and it doesn't look like it currently looks like. It was half, cafe really, like kind of because we fitted it out to the point that we had enough money to do it, and we opened the doors. And I think back and like I was so proud of it. The whole team was stoked, and the coffee was delicious, and I think it offered a completely unique thing for the area, for the Mornington Peninsula. Really, the first people doing it down there in that way. And now I think though, if we did it today, I'm not sure people would be as stoked about it because it wouldn't fit, I think, their expectations of the finished product. Because
you haven't got a matcha cream foam or something.
Or that, and even just like it wasn't super refined finish. It was literally in a big shed, and I just think kind of gone are the days of the backstreet Melbourne sort of like sit on milk crates, like kind of pulled together, with like kind of string and masking tape and bloody cable ties kind of vibe place, because the expectation is it's got to look good on TikTok, or you need to have a signature drink, or you need to have a celebrity barista like David Flood is now, like leading the charge. And I think, like you said, it's just different. I don't know if it's bad, but I do worry that maybe that would stymie innovation, that, that we're not going to see. But then maybe what it's going to do is just create a whole new type of innovation that, me as an old man who yells at clouds just doesn't understand.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe it's us, Kirk. Maybe we're wrong.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is us. The world be changing. But I want to talk a little bit about your coach, Emmeline. So very special woman.
Incredible.
And the reason she's not here now is because I'm got a podcast coming for her itself. So you'll all get to tune into that one. But what was it like working with her, and kind of like walk us through that whole process of what it was like and having her by your side. Is her name pronounced Giroux? Emmeline Giroux?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so. But what was it like working with her?
Oh, just phenomenal. I mean, yeah, she's just incredible. And it was such a treat to get to learn from her, to get to hang out with her, to get to know her, become friends. It was, just from the moment we started working together, from before we started working together, we met each other at a competition. We stayed in touch because we were talking about sensory stuff. I was looking to kind of create a little course, and straight away she was really forthcoming, being like, if you want to meet up and talk about sensory, that's my background. So we did. And then, 6 weeks before the comp, we were chatting and she was saying how no one ever asks her to be a coach. So I took the hint and I asked her to be my coach. I didn't know if she'd want to like coach me. But from then we just set out a plan. And, we just gave, she gave me so much time. Also didn't want to take up all of her time, because it's not like she was competing. But, sorry, I don't know, I'm kind of trying to collect my thoughts. Just her knowledge and her morals and ethics and perspective on the industry was so inspiring to be around for the 6 weeks. And, she gave me so much confidence and reassurance and guidance, because it was very firmly like, this is your competition, you're doing this, they're your decisions. But when it really mattered, she'd keep me within the lane, which was great. And she was so dedicated with the speech, like looking to the crowd. That was Emmeline. Ooh. All the little bits of gold in there, they were Emmeline. And like even on the day, a few little things that we kind of came up with on the fly that we think had a huge impact. Again, Emmeline. So, I just feel so lucky to have her as a friend and in my corner, and so excited to do this next run for nationals.
She is incredible, and I think something you mentioned there about how she kind of interacted with your routine is like the art of speech writing in a competition. And I was heavily involved with Alex, who competed in the same competition with you, and is thankfully progressing. But when you're writing it, it's like, and this is a good actually tip or value or resource for anyone that's listening to this who might want to do a barista competition or brewers routine themselves in the future. Like, everything kind of has to relate back to your whole theme. So you have a theme when you do these things, and everything you do and say kind of has to relate back to it in a way. And you need to be disciplined in keeping yourself within that parameter. And I find this all the time. It's like we were discussing for Alex before, can we help him? Can we use this machine on stage? Well, maybe, but like, does it relate to what he's doing? And it's like, you kind of got to, I don't know, you got to be so disciplined with doing those sorts of things and sticking to what you did. But obviously you did a great job.
Yeah, you need to be so precise. And does it improve the coffee? Does it improve the customer experience? And a lot of that, like, you don't know what you don't know. So that's the value in having an experienced coach who's also been a judge and is a Q grader. Like, that's a golden ticket there.
What I found interesting about this whole competition was that it was basically they changed the format this year to make it a bit more approachable. And initially I was very, very skeptical. I'm like, I don't see why you would do this, but whatever. That's what they're rolling with. So for the Brewers Cup, they effectively made the open service, well, everything as like a one big compulsory. So you brought your own coffee, but everyone used, one of two cups. Everyone used the same kettles. Everyone used the same grinder, same water, and, a few different papers and brewers and whatnot. And under this rule set, I think it kind of like, with respect to a lot of the other competitors, but I think it kind of exposed some people. There's like, if you don't have all these toys, like if you need all those other things to deliver a great routine or great coffee, then like, it kind of exposed some people. And there was some people that didn't make it to the national level that I thought really would have. And, I don't know the individual cases and whatnot, but like, I just think overall it was a really big success. And, the chapters of the Specialty Coffee Association across the world should kind of pay attention to what Australia did in that round, because I think it's actually the best decision they've made in the last, since I've been in the association. And, with that rule set, I think it's like, it made it like a more approachable thing. Having more people competing, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Having that level of aspiration, I think is a really good thing, because for so long we've viewed competition as like, a lot of people within the industry view it as like kind of like a wankerish thing. It's like, people who drink their espresso like this. I think there's a serious level of professionalism involved in it, and it helps things, tell stories like you've done, and elevate other things. And, I just think they did that real well.
I agree. I've followed barista competitions for my entire career, and they're always a little bit political too. And what I mean by that is that, like, they kind of help set the tone for what the industry is going to do for the next little period. I mean, like Matt Perger, EK43s, for example, like that revolutionized, how people talked about extraction and what we paid attention to for ages, even though he never ended up winning. And I always, the idea that competitions, it seemed to me that there was a bit of a move more recently towards the same people winning every year from the same companies. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Again, the competitions were sort of funneling this as what was happening, especially in barista, using the same coffees or the same type of coffees, and that it was like, is this all we want moving forward? And to me, it just seemed like eventually it was going to be big specialty coffee roasters who have access to the deepest pockets and the best coffee, just rinse and repeating professional coffee competitors. And I'm like, that's not a bad thing, but it's kind of like, again, are we missing out on some innovation here? And so I think that taking conscious steps to maybe equalizing the playing field or making it easier for someone to come in from the peripheral and make waves, like David's done. And I think it's like good for everybody. It's good for like literally the coffee producers who all of a sudden might be able to do something. Because also think about that, if this makes it all the way to the Worlds, like it really opens the doors for coffee farmers and producers to start winning. Like we've got a great partnership with Diego Campos, who was the Colombian barista champion, went on to win the WBC. We want to see more producers, like win the World Barista competition, and it's going to be really hard for them to do that if we move more and more towards the the deepest pockets, the best coffees, rather than great stories, and rules that mean that everyone can at least, have a seat at the table.
There's
shake things up,
What you said about, there's two things that I don't think I'll ever forget from this podcast that you said. And that's one is what you said about the colonial nature of how the coffee industry began, but also like what you said about valuing the social innovation. Other people value the gizmos, the toys, and, valuing that social impact is like, it's huge. I'll remember it forever. That was massive. Cool. I'm just randomly pointing that out because it did just hit me like a ton of bricks. But
worth bringing it up again.
Yeah, it's important.
When you moved here, what's like the biggest differences between like the Irish coffee scene and the Melbourne coffee scene? Scale.
I worked in a fairly big coffee roaster in Ireland, and we would send out a ton of coffee a week. And there's like coffee roasters I've never heard of sending out like, I don't know, 100 times that. Just the scale here is insane. And the cafe culture is so strong. The coffee, to be honest, like coffee in Ireland's great. The good places are phenomenal. In Dublin, in Belfast, Galway, you've got some quality roasters, quality cafes, competitors. Like there's some people, like one cafe in Dublin, Unfiltered in Inchicore. They have about 6 to 8 filters on every day, and they have an individual mineral or like an individual water recipe for each of those coffees that they dial in every single day and have been doing so for 5 years. That's class.
What was that, what was that place called?
Unfiltered.
I mean, I need to go there.
Let's go to Dublin.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Go there, pop into Brew Lab. That's ran by Arvind and Renata, husband and wife. Renata won the Irish latte art competition something like 5 times in a row, came 6th in the world. Arvind's been an Irish barista champion, placed a bunch of times in Brewers. Then you have Daniel Horbett running Sumo Coffee. He's a World Cup taster champion. You got Stephen Houston in Belfast with Lucid Coffee, and he's been roasting special guests coffee and a bunch of competition coffees for all the competitors in the UK. You got Calendar Coffee out in Galway. The list goes on. And when I came over here and was telling people about the coffee in Ireland, people were like laughing at me. It's like, is everyone here like sleeping on the coffee in Ireland? And of course they are, because it's so far away. I don't blame anyone. But I think there should be a bit more recognition for what's happening in Ireland for sure.
I need to go there. That unfiltered place sounds sick. And I always have I want to drive like an old beaten up buggy through Scotland at some point. Recently found out I'm majority Scottish, by the way.
Man, that was my favorite podcast.
So I'm majority Scottish. Second biggest sort of within me is Irish, I guess, of my ancestry. But I want to go there and hire a buggy and go through one of those farmland roads and play Mull of Kintyre by Paul McCartney and whoever else it is that sings that. Sounds great. A question I've got to ask you, it's pretty random. I find like most people would know that, just go ask a barista. Most baristas are either rock climbers or they're polyamorous. They're always one of the two. So do you guys agree with this? Yeah. Which one are you?
I've been known to climb a rock occasionally.
So you're a rock climber. David?
I'd also fall into the rock climbing category.
Right. Okay.
Yourself?
Huh? No comment. But seriously, he's losing it. He's losing it. But I don't know what it is about baristas and rock climbing. Like I really don't know what it is. And the polyamory thing's true as well. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like a Melbourne thing. Was it the same in Ireland? Like
rock climbing, yes. Polyamory, no. Okay. I think that is a Melbourne thing.
It's probably a bit more of a Melbourne thing. But
no, I mean Will, who roasted David's coffee, our head roaster, he loves a good rock climb. In fact, he basically bailed on our ongoing D&D campaign to start rock climbing. But it seems to have improved his coffee roasting because now he's a winner. So,
would you believe it? There's actually you mentioning D&D reminded me of something. There's a growing fraternity of people that are interested in competitive Pokemon in the coffee industry. So
like cards?
No. Like games. The most tough or most popular competition in Pokemon battling is like doubles competition. There's actually a lot of strategy to it. So I've actually had a lot of people come to the shop and talk to me about it because I'm a massive Pokemon guy. But at some point, I'm going to pilot having like a Pokemon tournament at the cafe because we've got a projector that beams onto the wall and I'm sure we can plug an HDMI into it. And so like I want to have like a little mini coffee Pokemon tournament there. So if either of you play, you're more than welcome.
I don't, but I'm down for that as long as you're pumping out more of that delicious.
Speaking of which, I made you a filter just before we came. How was it?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is the Takesi Geisha, and we'll finish. I think we'll finish on this subject. Is like, I think that if you were to cup things like the Ugandan, the Zukukubora coffee that you used, if you put that on a table with Takesi and some Panama geishas and things like that, like they'll all score pretty close. But brand recognition is so big in coffee now. Like Panama is just kind of in a league of its own, in terms of branding and price and in some ways quality. But I think if you put like Takesi Geisha, I think is the best wash geisha in the world. Like every year it gets released. It's like the Catalina wine mixer of coffee. I try it every year, and I'm just one of the things that I've come to appreciate from coffee, and it's similar to wine, is that every harvest is kind of different. And this year's harvest is so. I took a sip of that yesterday. I made 3 brews and I wanted to do like a backflip and bash my head on a table. It was so good. I didn't do that, but it was like, it's so good. It's so good. And, I just think like, it kind of got me thinking all these crazy ideas. Like, what if we had like a mega cup of excellence? I know some people would be against it for
like a global one.
Like a global one. Like the winner of each cup of excellence actually faced off in a global cup of excellence.
Knockout tournament.
Yeah, but like
I'm down for that.
well, this year, I mean, the best of Panama scored 98 points, so maybe that'll win. But like, I don't know. Could you get a Takeshi Geisha winning? Could you get like a Zukukubora doing a lot better than people think and like blindly cupping it? Because one thing that's come out recently about the Q grading system changing is that like, which I like being able to quantify how good something is. So like in that sense, I like the existing system, but I also like the thought of like, well, we need to detach from a number because it kind of doesn't allow this coffee's true value to shine. So under the new system where you could say, where they're theorizing this is kind of be how it operates, is that you give a coffee this description in flavor and quality, and then someone without saying a number or where it's from can kind of just be like, that's the coffee I like. And, that's where a coffee like this might actually have more success. Whereas if you rely on, all right, well, this is a Uganda coffee that scored 89 points, like its value is not truly appreciated. Yeah. Whereas if like a Jansen Geisha that scores 89 will probably fetch like 10 times the price. So, I mean, agree, disagree?
No, completely agree. And I mean, again, we felt like that's been Commonfolk's responsibility for Zukukubora, through, producing the documentary all the way through to like, being so stoked that David wanted to use this coffee to compete with. And then, like feeling justified when he went on to win. But yeah, like we just want to share the coffee. And it's funny, it's both like I kind of look at it and go, I'm a bit jealous that like, like there are certain coffees that have like a brand that kind of net them better prices. But then if we can do the same thing for Zukuka, then that can be in our favor too, or in the farmer's favor. So, and we've got a bit of it, like a bit of green, theoretically available too. So I think one thing that we'll often have like customers who want to drink it, that we've roasted it, but a lot of roasters are like, oh, can I get some? And I can tell you this, you can't have David's coffee. No. Firstly, there's only one bag of it and we'll put that aside.
Yeah.
But it's pretty fresh. It's just landed about a month ago. Yeah. So there is some there, I think, as well. And if you want to pay 10 times the price of what you normally would for it, we'll make sure that gets back to where it needs to be. So yeah.
I love that. You mentioned to me the other day that you're going to actually do some pop-ups serving the coffee that you used.
Yeah.
So by the time this is released, hopefully that some of those will be coming around.
Yeah.
Your handle is Irish Coffee on Instagram.
That's it.
I would like to submit an application that it becomes Davy Jones, big time Pirates of the Caribbean fan. Before we conclude, I want to get an answer from both of you. You're for the Global Cup of Excellence, or yay or nay?
No, I'm for it. It sounds like the kind of thing I'd be interested in.
Yeah, you're for it.
Yeah.
In theory,
Battle Royale.
Yeah, I want to see the. I want to make sure it was fair and equal playing ground. But yeah.
David, we're about to wrap up the podcast. What's the final thing you want to say to people? Speaking about everything that we've spoken about, what do you want people who have gone all the way through this podcast, listen to the end, what do you want to conclude with? What do you want to leave them with?
Thank you. The theme of the whole last 6 weeks was community, and it had me think a lot about the coffee community. A lot of industries don't refer to themselves as communities, so I think coffee is unique like that. And in my eyes, a community is a group of people who look after those who are most vulnerable. And at the moment, the most vulnerable people in the coffee community are the people of Palestine, who have had genocide waged on them for over 70 years now. And I would call on the whole community of Melbourne and the world to come together and to boycott, divest and sanction all Zionist companies, whether that's cafes, roasters, oat milk companies, for as long as they're occupying illegal land in Palestine.
Well, you said it well. And I think on that, like the level of suffering that goes on for people there, and it's like, that needs to end, and I do understand that people come to coffee as a place of kind of release. You know, we can't, you know, paint the whole industry with every one of the world's problems, obviously, that we can't solve all of them. But with this, it's like
you could choose where you spend your
well,
money.
you can choose where you spend
That's
your money.
our vote that we make every day for the kind of world we want to live in. And if we send our money to companies who support Zionism, then that's the kind of world we'll live in.
And one thing I like on that whole conflict, you know, I try and keep this podcast mostly about coffee. You know, you know, there's other podcasts you can go to for everything else, but to have my say, it's like those people deserve their freedom, and you know the conflict's gone on for far too long, and I don't know how the world kind of allows it really, and it's just that needs to end, you know, now. And I don't know how it's gone this far, but you know, I just think that, you know, I said to you guys before, I don't know how I could live with people not paying a coffee producer. You know, I don't know how I could sleep at night doing that. I could never sleep at night knowing that, you know, I've pushed the button to end someone's life. And so, you know, I wasn't planning for you to say that, but you know, I'm absolutely ready for it, and I think, you know, it's just, yeah, I hope that conflict ends very soon, as well as all the other
absolutely
conflicts in the world. But yeah, well said. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much for coming on, and I think there's so many things that you said. You've got a great story, and you'll go very far in this industry, and I love what you're saying. You know, I love your convictions as a person, and I love the social innovation message that you want to preach. And you know, I wish you all the best. Best of luck for the Nationals, and
thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Cheers.
Well,
Thank you.
hooroo, everyone.